All right, welcome back to Perdido Key Gaming. Today we got some more role-playing game type stuff. Today's role-playing game will be the Hero system from Hero Games. George McDonald, Steve Peterson, Rob Bell. Got the Hero system rules book here, you know, and the Fantasy Hero rule book. Both of which I played a couple of times, especially back in the day in the early 80s. Champions was the Hero system type game, and it was a lot of fun. It was, you know, a lot of fun creating a character, a lot of fun playing the game. You know, there was plenty of stuff out there for Champions, a whole bunch of scenarios. You'd find scenarios in the old Dragon magazine and things like that. And anyway, yeah, this is the 4th edition. Looks like this is 1989, 1990. But basically, it's pretty easy. You know, 6-sided dice. The Hero system could be adapted to any sort of power level and, you know, genre for that matter. Champions was, of course, superheroes. Fantasy hero, of course, you know, fantasy gaming. You know, when I say power level, you could have heroic versus super heroic. It all depends on how many points the characters are given at the beginning of the game to create their character. They all start out with a certain number of, you know, ability points. As you can see here, you know, you'd start out and have your base points for incompetent normals, and, you know, don't say incompetent. They're talking about people like, you know, grandmothers and babies and stuff like that. You know, not necessarily incompetent, just not you know, not able to do normal things, but normal, skilled normal, competent normals, your hero types, your superheroes, standard and high powered. But that's how you raise and lower I mean, you don't have to stick to their numbers. You can, you know, hand out whatever points you want. But that's kind of the cool thing about this game system. And your characteristics are you know, the usual strength, dexterity, constitution, body, which is kind of hit points, intelligence, ego, presence, comeliness. And you have figured statistics like your defense capability, your speed, your recovery, how much body and endurance and stun you get back each you know, round and things like that. And of course, you know, what it basically boils down to is powers and skills and equipment. So, you know, skills aren't powers, skills are skills, and equipment isn't powers, except it could seem like that, of course. And that's the thing, you know, what you would do is, you know, your fireball power could be concentrated into you know, a device like a wand or a staff or a rod or something like that as a focus, and that would take off some of the points it costs for this fireball, because if you lose the staff or the wand or the you know, the rod, well, you can't fire off your fireball. So gives you some suggestions for, you know, skills for the characters and stuff like that. But obviously, you know, the skills aren't concentrated in a device or anything, but, you know, they can be, like cryptography or cryptology or something like that could be focused into a computer, for example. Yeah. But they give a whole bunch of things about the skills and things like that, a bunch of stuff about languages and, you know, martial arts styles. It even gives you a whole lay down of that, what that's going to cost you to have that type of, you know, martial arts style. You know, skill enhancers, and you're buying all this out of your points and things like that, and your perks and are bought out of points, and you can basically, you know, talents or powers, as it were. And you can buy more of these powers, but in order to offset the cost of the powers, you have to buy disadvantages. So, you know, if you're like the superhero Daredevil, he's got all these powers, but his disadvantage is that he's blind, or maybe it's an advantage in his case. You know, Superman's got kryptonite as a disadvantage. But you know, there's different powers that they put down and say, hold on, maybe you should stop and look at this power first before you give people the ability to buy it off. You know, and so that's kind of the fun part is, you know, you come up with a character concept and then you buy the powers to create what you got in mind. You know, so you know that's always was my favorite part about Champions and things like that, was creating the character and things like that. Now, you know, like I said, the rules are all basically 6-sided dice. You know, you're rolling over, rolling under. If you do a certain amount of damage, there's knockback, things like that. You know, it's, you know, this particular rule book's pretty comprehensive when it comes to the hero system. That's, you know, it used to be, there was all sorts of, when Champions came out, there was all sorts of articles on, yeah, we were looking at that, and that's not a good idea. So there's, you know, certain rules that, you know, at least they got under control, let's just put it that way. And so, like I said, you know, your abilities can be under some control. You know, they've got all sorts of frameworks. You know, if you concentrate all your powers into, you know, a certain type of power, then you can get a discount in the way of points. So a disadvantage that isn't a disadvantage isn't worth any points. So but all sorts of interesting things, you know, the age disadvantage and distinctive features. So, you know, if your character doesn't have a secret identity, then, you know, you've got a disadvantage because everybody knows who you are, of course, you know. In the case of the Watchmen, everybody knew who they were, right? Well, in at least case of one of the Watchmen. But package deals, you know, this is basically, you know, to say this is how much it's going to cost you to be a policeman. You know, familiarity with small arms, billy club, criminal law, and then you know, distinctive features as a, you know, disadvantage. You're a cop, so. You know. But then it gives you some sample characters, and it seems like there's, you know, you're only this character, but the fact is when you go along and you gain more points, according to your game master may give you more points, and you can bump up your characteristics and your skills and your powers and things like that. So there's no level system, as it were. So. But they got a whole games master section here, tells you, you know, how to do combat and everything, and it's got the same sort of speed chart as Starfleet Battles, where their combat's broken up into segments, and your character's speed tells you when you can act. So segment 1, almost nobody can act except for the fastest people. So that's you know, one of the reasons why you'd want to have some pretty good speed on you. You know, some stuff's going to take up some of your phases and things like that. You know, combat sequence is find out what you're offensive, find out what you're defensive, roll 3 6-siders, and if you roll less than or equal to 11, you plus OC plus DC, and if it's missed, that's it. Then if it hits, you determine the damage and any effects of the damage, and you go to the next character. So it's pretty wild. I remember some pretty funny events that would happen. My brother used to be pretty hilarious when he played Champions. He was, you know, always played a big guy, and You know, he's famous for his knockback, throwing people through walls and things like that. So, I mean, it can be as simple as that, or it can be as complex as somebody with one of those power frameworks where, you know, they have to light a match in order to fire, you know, cast fireball. But yeah, there's all sorts of maneuvers and things like that, and determining damage, and you know, there's killing power, there's killing damage, and then there's normal damage. So you're taking stun, which could knock you out and get you out of the game. If you're knocked out, you could come back, get back on your feet. But yeah, that's kind of it for, you know, the main rule book. And of course, Fantasy Hero goes into this one. Actually is an earlier version, you know, probably around the 3rd edition Fantasy Hero, or the 3rd edition Hero System rules. Got campaign, how to set up a campaign, characters, you know, it's got different types of packages for different types of characters, so that you don't, you know, if you don't have any idea what you want to do, then at least you get some sort of idea about how much it's going to cost you to, you know, be a ranger. It's only going to cost you 4 points, which is kind of a good deal. But yeah, all the, you know, you combine your profession package in with your race package, if you're using, you know, elves and dwarves and halflings and trolls and orcs and things like that. You know, buying spells. Spells, of course, are powers, just with, you know, certain kinds of restrictions and things like that. So, you know, it could be, you know, and the game master is the one who's figuring out how that magic system works. He might say, well, there's 4 types of magic. It's earth, fire, wind, and rain, you know, and that's your spell users. That's all they can do is a certain type of magic, which, you know, it depends on what you want to, how you want to do that. And of course, you could, you know, that's got the typical, everything that the hero system has, except, you know, based on fantasy and things like that. But a lot of background material for the game master to use. You've got, you know, sample campaign, the Western Shores. So, and it gives you a whole bunch of stuff of how to do that, you know. So that's kind of handy, you know, for people who are just starting out, or don't have a, you know, a campaign system already laid out. But other scenarios, and it gives you all the, you know, each of the animals obviously has got the same sort of statistics, using points as you know, a character does, one of the player characters. That's kind of cool. You know, you got your magic item sections and things like that. So, you know, I think unless you have your magic items already set up, then it'd probably be a little, you know, creating a magic item is almost as involved as creating a character. So that could be kind of hard to do unless it's a simple magic item. Anyway, that's it for Hero Systems from Hero Games, circa 1990. Definitely fun to play. I'm actually not sure whether a new, you know, they've got any updates after 30 years, but I'm sure they do. Definitely a fun system to play, especially when you're playing superheroes. Anyway, that's it from Perdido Key Gaming. Hit like, hit subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments.